Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. If you've been following me over on Instagram for a while now, you will probably recognise that I enjoy doing character art, especially portraits. So I thought, why not do one for this video? I recently drew this picture of a character, and even though I normally don't redraw characters, I just wanted to draw this one again, maybe wearing something a little bit different, more regal, and yeah, let's just get right into it. I like to start off with some warm-up sketches before jumping into the refined sketch. When I'm doing the refined sketch, I try and make sure that I put in as much detail and just as much information as possible to make it easier in the long run. I used to get a bit lazy with my sketches and say, oh well, I'll just put in the details later. It never ends out quite as refined and as good as it could have been if I had just put the time into the sketch right at the beginning. So the only thing I really tend to still do that with are hands, but there aren't any hands in this portrait, so I didn't have to worry about that. But that's really not an excuse. I should take the time to define my hands a little bit more clearly. Do as I say, not as I do. So when I start to put colour down, I like to start with the background first, because that kind of dictates the rest of the colours and how they're going to look. I just referenced the drawing that I had already done of the character, but then I started to play around a little bit with different coloured backgrounds, and I kind of settled on this idea that I wanted to darken everything and maybe have this backlight coming in that's shining off some jewellery. Yeah, I just had fun with it really. I started blocking in the different colours that I wanted in the piece. I didn't really have to redesign anything too much. I changed the hair up a little bit, but the rest of it was straightforward until I wanted to start redesigning the clothing. I already had a rough idea of what I wanted her to be wearing. I'm not sure why I procrastinated on starting that for so long. Normally I don't. Normally I'd put in all my flats first, but I guess that's the thing with the creative process. Every single time you draw something, even if you have a methodical kind of way that you like to do things, it ends up kind of different every time anyway. Or at least that's how it is for me. I take a pretty painterly approach to my art, but if you're in like a production line in animation, yeah, I'd assume that you'd probably have a way more methodical way of doing things. It would probably save a lot of time. My pieces always end up taking me like hours and hours and hours to complete. No Sam does arts. I have absolutely no idea how to complete a piece in under 4 hours. Everything for me, it's always getting up to that 10-hour mark and even exceeding beyond it a lot of the time. Also, be prepared for this piece to change drastically in a second now. If you wanted to see what happens between now and then, I'll likely have the full process up on my Instagram. I'm on there as Elle the Art Mage, and you can see a lot of my time lapses on there. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just trying to make the skin look a little bit softer and smoother. I duplicate the layer, gouge and blur it, and then I just start erasing the blurred layer to bring back the definition that was there underneath. I do this quite frequently. It just helps to smooth out the areas that I want to look a little bit softer. And another jump cut in 3, 2, 1. So this is where I started to refine the jewellery a little bit more. When I initially blocked it in, it was kind of blobby. I knew that I was going to have to deal with it eventually, so now is the time for that. I just kind of made all the edges a lot more defined, a lot sharper, gave some shape to the earring, and once I was done sort of defining these areas, I tend to either alpha lock or do a clipping mask on top so that I can render them. So once I decided on the shapes that I wanted the jewellery to be, I just started painting on over the top of it. I selected a brighter yellow colour that I airbrushed in where the light was going to hit it, and in the shadow areas I just started airbrushing in this desaturated purple colour as a bounce light. It just made it look a little bit more reflective than if I just put the bright yellow where the light was hitting it on the left. And another thing that I really like to do with jewellery and other reflective surfaces is I just try to darken up the area between your strongest light and maybe a bounce light. I select a much darker yellow and just really make sure that it's not too wishy-washy or washed out. I find that If you really want to make something look reflective, use a really wide range of values. So have your reflective parts, like where the light's hitting it, just really bright and light, and where the light's not hitting it, just really darken it up. And even if it looks really weird when you're zoomed in or when you're doing it, when you zoom back out, or if you go away and come back and look at it again, it just works. It's just one of those things where you got to trust the process. So after rendering for a little while, I decided that the gold was a bit washed out, so I added a hard light layer on top and just brushed in a medium kind of orangish yellow. It added a lot more depth to it and I really like the result. Another thing that I really like to do with gold and reflective surfaces is I tend to find a textured brush. So in this case I used a rake brush and just put it on an add layer and just started putting some scratches onto the gold. It gives it a really nice, realistic looking texture compared to when it's just very airbrushed and smooth. Unless you're going for that effect, then that's perfectly fine as well, but it comes down to personal preference, and I just really like how it looks when you put some scratches onto it. So in the original artwork of this character, she had a blue cloak on, and I felt like the blue and the gold in that piece worked really well together. They are complementary colours, so blue and gold or blue and orange always tend to work really well together, and I just wanted to add some blue back in, having just these little jewels in between the gold, and they just added a little bit more complexity to the design. And once I had them in there, I was like, yep, this is going to be it. I'm just going to keep rendering and then I'll be done. And she's finished, although she's now facing the other direction. When I saved it to my iPad, I usually tend to save them flipped and non-flipped, and when I was looking at the icons in my feed, I just kind of liked her facing that way more for some reason, so I decided to keep it that way. Yeah, I haven't named this character yet, so if you've got any suggestions for what I could call her, please leave them below in the comments. I would greatly appreciate it. I always kind of tend to struggle with naming my characters, so I feel like if they had a name I'd probably draw them more often. So if you really wanted to see me draw her again, definitely do leave those name suggestions down below. It would really help me out, thank you in advance. Something that I really wanted to try out after trying to make some thumbnails for this video was just putting her into more of a landscape orientation. If I'd drawn her a little bit zoomed in and really used up the rest of the canvas to maybe draw the hair out, yeah, so here's that as a treat. I feel like it turned out really nice, so I just kind of wanted to include that at the end here. Yeah, thank you for watching this video. I hope to have another one out next week, but we'll see. I'm getting pretty busy with university right now. I've got 2 assignments due soon, although I've really been procrastinating on getting those finished. Do as I say, not as I do. And yeah, I've had a few ideas floating around in my head for some more videos. Hopefully I can get something out again next week, but sometimes life just gets in the way. And yeah, thank you for watching. Bye!